economic miracle. In one generation, this tiny Southeast Asian island has made the move from third world status to first. It's now undergoing one of the world's largest ever subway expansions, a mighty challenge, given that they're tunneling underneath a bulging metropolis and through difficult soil conditions. Singapore is one of the most densely populated countries in the world. 4 million people packed onto a tiny island. That's 15,000 people every square mile. It's confronted transport chaos by creating a public transport system with no equal. By 2010, there will be a subway stop every 400 meters throughout most of the island. Risky business for the men building it under this mass of humanity. 4 million people living on an island half the size of Los Angeles. It's one of the richest and most culturally diverse countries in Asia. It's also said to be the most modern and efficient city in the world. But not too long ago, Singapore was a very different place.
If you can go from one end of the universe to the other end of the universe in 40 years, I think Singapore has traveled that journey. I think one of the little known facts about Singapore is that it's one of the very few developing countries that has actually made the transition from developing to developed status, and all in the space of 30 to 40 years.
In 1965, when Singapore gained independence from Malaysia, it was poor. Rickshaws and old buses rattled along the streets, and cars clogged the roadways of this tiny little island.
We would have 15 people living in a room. In my case, we had a family of 6 and we lived in a one-room house in Singapore. So it was, a typical developing country. And in 1965, when Singapore became independent, I think we had the same per capita income as Ghana, about $500 per year.
Singapore's new leaders set out to build a new nation. They demolished old buildings and rehoused people in satellite towns and suburbs. And to get them to work, they revolutionized the commute. Its mass transit system is now one of the crowning jewels of Singapore, moving over 1 million people every day. It's the first country to boast heavy rail driverless trains. Singapore is also the only country in the world that regularly reminds its commuters how they are expected to behave.
Please do not eat or drink on the railway premises. Thank you for your cooperation.
And that includes chewing gum, a now infamous Singaporean law.
You know that the reason why chewing gum was banned in Singapore, one of the reasons, is that somebody would stick a piece of chewing gum and the doors of the train wouldn't close. And so the train couldn't move. So I think that's when the government got very upset. They said, hey, this has got to stop.
Singapore opened its first subway line in 1987 and has been expanding it ever since. Singaporeans are master planners. They prepare for everything. Several stations are completely built, but trains won't stop there for another 7 years. They just like to be ready. It's all part of the grand vision for Singapore, to have one of the most comprehensive mass transit systems in the world. Move people quickly and you've got a fast-moving economy. It's one of the ways Singapore has managed to leap forward from third world status to first in the space of a few decades. A mighty accomplishment indeed.